how's it going, and welcome to a very special video. So for this community collab video, I asked you guys to send in clips of yourself talking about your favorite Fire Emblem characters. And this video is a compilation of all the various clips that I received, and I'm really happy with all the submissions. There's a very wide range of characters from pretty much all the different games, and I really love getting the chance to hear everybody's own little stories about why this particular character is their favorite. Whether it's the impact that they left on the person, or their role in the story, or their personality, or just how cute they are. And it's something I feel sorta honored to be able to put together, I guess. If you're looking for a specific entry, check the description. It has time codes and names for everybody's submissions. And yeah, I hope you all enjoy.
Alright, so if I had to pick a favorite Fire Emblem character from like the 6 or 7 games I've played, I would probably pick Flair from Three Houses. Now, I don't have like a specific deep reason for liking Flair as much as I do, but it's kind of a culmination of things. I do like her backstory. I think the game does a good job of keeping her backstory kind of hidden, but giving you like a lot of hints. But what I really just like the most about her, it's just like she's just really funny, puts a smile on my face. I guess the one thing that everyone thinks of are the fish side quests, where there's like 2 or 3 side quests where you have to find fish for her, and for some reason one of them they make it a particularly big deal. That quest spawned like so many images of just Flair looking absolutely insane with like fish in her mouth and other memes like that are fun. I both love and hate those pictures, but I guess probably my favorite moment from her is her support conversation with Felix, where it's all about her. Every single conversation is her bringing like fruit and a bunch of other things to throw up in the air so Felix can cut them all, and she just keeps coming back wanting to challenge Felix every single time just to see how much stuff that he can cut in midair, and that's the entire thing, and for some reason that kills me. Of course, the way she talks by not really like using contractions makes me want to protect her. I don't know what that is. That's an awful reason to like a character, but that is my reason. And when I actually recruited her, right, I didn't care about her too much until she actually like joined my house. And when she did, I made her a Pegasus Knight, which is my favorite class in all of Fire Emblem. And something about the aesthetic of the Pegasus Knight just made a lot of sense for her. And something about, this is going to sound stupid, but something about the back of Flair's head is the most satisfying thing ever. It's like, it's so clean looking. Her hair's like separated, and so you get to see her hairline just straight down the middle, and she just looks so clean and organized and neat. And I vibe with that. Can't tell you why. That's another awful reason to like a character. I guess, this is a spoiler for the Black Eagles route. She leaves your army, right? And when you have to face her, I couldn't do it. I actively avoided her so hard. I left her last because I thought there might be some way to recruit her. There was not. I'm sorry, Flair. I had to take your life.
My favorite Fire Emblem character. There almost seems too many to go over, doesn't there? And with so many to choose from, I can only give the name to one character who's stuck with me through the years that I've been a fan of this series. And the title, and really I should say honor, of that spot goes to Corel from Fire Emblem 6 and Fire Emblem 7. But more so Fire Emblem 7, and I have only one reason, well, multiple reasons why I should say. I can still remember sitting down after school, playing Fire Emblem while sitting with my friends that got me into the game in the first place, getting onto that snowy chapter where he joined in, and then killing all those enemies. And when he popped up, well, boy was I surprised. I saw that Swordmaster sprite, that green unit color, and that beautiful portrait. I instantly felt a connection. After I got him to join my squad, I would joke about how he was my waifu, even though he's obviously a male character, and you really couldn't call him that. But it became such an inside joke amongst my friends, and had already been one, that it made sense, really. And to this day, I mean, even without broaching the topic of how he performs as a unit, I could go on for ages about his design. He's just breathtaking in terms of how he looks. He looks almost demonic and inhuman, vampiric in a way. Those yellow eyes and that graceful build. but once you factor in that insane performance, it's pretty much surreal. Even without the terrain bonuses of forests or anything else, Corel has 55 base avoid, and forests it goes into the 70s easily. You can't hit him no matter who you are, and his absurd growth as a late game pre-promote make him even more unstoppable. Even a mere Iron Sword, not to mention his Woda, will have him critting left and right, finishing off even the tough armored enemies on his join chapter, who will get somewhere around 40 or so hit against him, while meanwhile he'll have a guaranteed chance to hit them, and almost half of a chance to crit them at every opportunity. I guess I should really start to wrap this up and say the one thing that I've wanted to say about Corel this entire time, that he's simply god tier, no questions about it, even as a stereotypical edgelord character that's just obsessed with combat. I've still fallen helplessly head over heels for this dark-haired demon.
Hey there, my name is Ryan. You can find me on YouTube at KeyBladeMaster333. So, Fire Emblem Echo Shadows of Valentia is one of my favorite games in the series, and I think if I'm to be honest with who my favorite Fire Emblem character is, I would say someone like the Black Knight, but I'm going to go with Berkut. The reason I like Berkut and think he's my favorite character is because Berkut has so many elements of what I think is a good written antagonist. He's cocky, he's enjoyable, whenever he's on screen, he steals the show. But more than just that, Berkut actually has an understandable motive and reason for his actions that don't justify it in terms of like morality, but you understand why he would think that and why he acts the way he does. And not a lot of Fire Emblem antagonists have that. They are always usually just irredeemably evil monsters, or literally monsters like dragons or, demons or whatever. And Berkut strikes a balance between being sympathetic and being hateable at the same time in a way that only someone like Arvis from Fire Emblem 4 has been able to do in the series, in my opinion. And I think what Berkut does that makes him so likable is that, like Arvis, you get to see him at his top fall. But unlike Arvis, where we see the rise of Arvis only at the end of Generation 1, and we see the fall during Generation 4, but we don't, like, the second half of the game, we actually get to see Berkut at his top slowly, over the course of the game, lose it and lose everything he thought about himself. And to me, that makes him a really interesting villain, because we rarely see villains in the series start off at their A game and slowly lose it over time. And his relationship with Rinea is just, I like it. I think Rinea, even though she's not this great character necessarily, brings things out of him that I think really just give him that extra layer. And no other Fire Emblem character, antagonist-wise, has really done that for me until Three Houses. But because Three Houses is so new, I don't feel it's right to comment on it yet. And Berkut just has so many things going for him. He's got a great design. He's got this great voice actor in Ian Sinclair. And the developers gave him a good script to use. Honestly, Berkut is so good. I have all of his copies in Heroes. His Fallen version is one of my pet projects. I have him at +7. His Dancer one is great. All in all, I think Berkut he hits every nail an antagonist needs to be in the series. And not only does it better than I thought he would have, but he just has so much layers to him that make him stand out in a series where villains have trouble standing out. And that's why he's my favorite villain.
Okay, so if I had to choose a favorite Fire Emblem character, I would choose Python from Echo Shadows of Valentia. I just like the way this character talks and how he talks to other people, especially his best friend Forsyth, and how they talk back to each other back to back kind of deal with how Forsyth's so goal driven and justice and such, and then Python's hanging back, no goals, just doing what he needs to do, shooting his bow. And even though he's just a minor character compared to most other characters, with I think he has 2 supports or 1 support, I feel he still resonates with me as a person, only because just the way he acts around the world and to the other characters just makes me feel that people like him's can exist in this kind of world without having the whole Knights and Justice crap. Even though he says like multiple times like he doesn't have any goals, and Forsyth complains about it a lot, he still does things, but just doesn't do what people think, like having a big old goal. He just kind of goes with the flow, and that's kind of like what I do. That's why I kind of like him as a character. And also other things is that he talks to other people, and he like doesn't mince his words or hold back his words, like when talking to Clive and such. He like doesn't like back down to like what he's thinking and such, which I also do with a lot of people who like talk to me and stuff. I always like give them like what's on my mind immediately. I don't want to like hold things back because I feel like that'd be rude, kind of like what Python does to people. And that's probably why Python's my favorite Fire Emblem character.
Hey, this is my submission for Fither's dumb Fire Emblem collab thing. I'm going to be talking about Amelia from Fire Emblem 8 or Sacred Stones, the last of the Game Boy Advance Fire Emblem games. Amelia is a girl who tries really hard, and that's a core value I really enjoy about her as a character. I appreciate it's different than the, I guess more battle-hardened or sad people that compose a lot of Fire Emblem's casts. You know, that grim determination that makes them all feel kind of samey at a point. Her first appearance is actually optional. You can find her house in, I think it's the same chapter that Joshua appears in for the first time, who's probably my favorite male character, but I had to pick one, sadly. And you get a little scene of her packing up to get shipped off to the front lines, and she is kind of excited. Like that same nationalistic determination that kind of fueled Nephany as at her base from Path of Radiance. All in all, Amelia's kind of like a cuddlier Nephany, I guess. In terms of how she plays mechanically, the branching promotion system present in Fire Emblem 8 allows you to give her some fun variety since she starts as a pre-promote, something unique to that game. For those of you who are curious, look that up on your own. If I talked about the mechanics of that game more in depth, we'd be here all day. The cherry on top would be her end card, you know, the one they put in the credits of every game when they run you through what you did. They call her the Rose of War, which kind of sums it up perfectly. She's something warm and genuine in this horrible, grim situation, and I think that not only fits her to a T, but it's a perfect cherry on what I think is the fun and unique part of her character. She's just a girl who tries really hard and wants to see everything turn out good for her countrymen. It's simple, but effective, and I really like that.
My favorite Fire Emblem character is Hilda Valentine Goneril. At first I didn't think much of her because I thought she'd be Sarah 2.0, but I was very wrong about that. When I saw her post time skip design during my playthrough of the Blue Lions route, I knew that I had to play the Golden Deer route immediately after. I find her design to be very gorgeous. I'd say she is the most attractive Fire Emblem character, even more than Lara Shell from Sacred Stones, who was my favorite Fire Emblem character before her. I was actually really surprised just how much I could relate to her. She always tries to lower the expectation of other people out of fear of disappointing them or failing at something, despite being a very strong and competent person. I really could relate to that. I also really like the theme of karma within her character. Her crest of Goneril corresponds to the tarot card of the Wheel of Fortune, which symbolizes such things as fate, luck, fortune, and opportunity, which fits perfect with her character. She usually offers someone to do her work so she can do the things she likes to do, and instead of exploiting their help or taking advantage of them, she tries to compensate their work with something of equal value, like for example praising them in order to restore some sort of karmic balance. I really like that concept. Another example would be the supports of Annette and Marianne, where it shows that when Hilda tries to give them her work, it ends up biting her, so she ends up doing it herself, thus restoring the balance. She's basically the phrase, what goes around comes around personified. She comes across as selfish and lazy, which she partially is, but she's also a very smart and kind-hearted person. She's also very perceptive because she notices that her hero's relic Freikugel, which by the way makes me wish that Hilda would have some sort of crit quote that goes like in Nocturne. Anyway, she notices that her hero's relic moves as if it were alive, foreshadowing the reveal of the crest's origin at the end of the Golden Deer route, which was pretty neat. My two favorite moments in the story with her were in chapter 19 of the Blue Lions route, where she defends Theodore from the Empire. It was where she showed just how dedicated she is to Claude, and that she fights to the death when it comes to defending her homeland, despite saying that she wouldn't sacrifice her life for someone. It's very satisfying seeing her drop the lazy act and actually give it her all. My other favorite moment was when Hilda suggested that Claude should dress up as Edelgard. That was pretty funny. And that's pretty much it. That's all I've got to say about Best Girl Demi-Fiend Hilda. Also, her as support CG is really hot.
My favorite Fire Emblem character would be Tinny from Fire Emblem 4 Genealogy of the Holy War. She's got a pretty nice design as a daughter of one of my other favorites, Tailchew, but mainly she has a beautiful and tragic backstory and character arc, really fitting for the game, as you watch her over the game go from this depressed and abused girl who was always forced to do things by her family and always had to listen to them. I mean, she talks about how she never saw her mother smile until the day she died. But as the game progresses, she grows into this strong woman who fights her family, goes against their tyrannical hold on her, and fights for what she believes in, and she becomes confident in herself, and she becomes happy. Not to mention, when you pair her with the main Lord Seliph, and you're able to see the similarities she has to Daedra, and how she learns from Daedra's mistakes and doesn't repeat them, and through the relationship with Seliph, helps Seliph grow, and help him not repeat the mistakes of his father Sigurd, capturing the perfect theme of the second generation of FE4, of the kids learning from the mistakes of their parents. It's a beautiful character arc, beautiful character story, and really captures the theme of Fire Emblem 4. Plus, who doesn't love thunder magic?
I've seen a lot of people talking about Bernadetta these past few months. Those that like her and those that don't. And think she's overrated. And to be honest, I even started to dislike her quite a bit after a while. Mainly due to how samey her supports could be. And over time, though, I noticed something about this purple-haired girl. She reminded me so much of myself. And the things I hated about who I am. Being so afraid of what others might think of you, and feeling like no matter what you do, those around you will hate you in the end. Feeling like you're not good enough to please those you want to impress, and the pressure of living up to the expectations put upon you. And how she feels like she's better off just staying in her room and not being around anyone reflects myself so much. It brings her B support with Byleth to mind, as it's widely considered one of her best supports. The utter heartbreak I had listening to this girl speak of the atrocities her fathers put her through struck a very strong chord with me, and I still can't watch it without feeling like I'm on the brink of tears. The near apathetic way she spoke of it just made it all the worse for me. This is when I really began to identify with her, and during my time playing the game, I was, and still am, struggling with my own issues that mirror her own. But this brings us to a lighter note. After the time skip, her transformation from this meek girl that couldn't even talk to someone without running away, without the fear of angering them, becoming a woman who, while still afraid to step outside of her comfort zone, made an effort to better herself. She tried to do what she could to ensure that she would no longer be so weak-willed. And her S support proves this. She knows that she still can't make it without the support of others, but she's actively seeking that help, making sure to not turn down those who wish to help her. It's helped me realize and come to terms with myself, and even though I'm not better just yet, I have all these amazing people around me to help me get through the days. And I still may need them now, but working to that end goal of being my better self is what I'm striving for, just like she is. And this is why she is my all-time favorite character. There may be better written and better developed characters out there, but the impact I felt from her while playing can't be replaced. So thank you for listening to me prattle on about this super shut-in with some serious issues. And, of course, about Bernadetta, my favorite character.
Gaius has to be hands down my favorite Fire Emblem character throughout the entire series. I'm the only one who didn't kill Gaius the first time around when I played Awakening. I'm happy I didn't. He became my best unit in all the Fire Emblem games I've played. You meet him on the battlefield, and if you are weak-brained, you kill him and not talk to him with Chrom, but I figured out that I could talk to him first playthrough. So I did, and Chrom recruits him by dropping Lisa's bag of candy, in which he says, "If you pay me in that, I'll join the Shepherds." And he does. And he later says that he wasn't too thrilled about finding out that he had to assassinate Emmerin, instead of just trying to steal from the treasury. After a little while, with all the support conversations, this is where Gaius really shines for me. Not even in, like, the gameplay aspect of him becoming a war machine assassin. He was branded for a crime. He says he took the fall for somebody, but Gaius pretty unreliably lies through his teeth all the time, so we can't exactly hold him to that. And in the DLC of the beach DLC for Awakening, he puts on a bathing suit, but even then he takes a piece of cloth and covers up the thief brand that he has on it, and gets very embarrassed about it. So he covers up that, and he dismisses the fact entirely when Anna asks about it. Even despite his backstory or things he does in the game, he always just strikes me as a really cool guy. Thieves always catch my attention in these types of games. Like Fire Emblem, I always prioritize thieves. Like, I would multi-class into thieves all the time, but usually the ones that started out as thieves were so edgy you could cut your fingernails on them. But Gaius, he just steals because he's good at it, and the money he steals is going to buy more sweets, and he was always just a fun guy because it was all about sweets. And he sold me during the support. He was always a fun guy talking to the other characters, even though he was lying through his teeth, cheating, and stealing like a madman, all the while never saying anybody's real name. Probably just thought it was funny at the time, which I always thought hilarious to no end. He's absolutely the guy who would steal from a baby, not just because he's a heartless monster, but because he just really likes sweets and has hypoglycemia, but he has candy everywhere in his person to either help that or just fuel his addiction. He's just a cool guy. He's fun. He's just a fun thief, lollipop strapped to his chest, and the best damn unit I've ever had in any Fire Emblem game to date.
Yeah, I would honestly have to say that Alm and Celica, they're definitely my favorite characters over in the series as a whole. And that mainly has to do with the fact over that Echoes itself, just a really good game with a lot of really good storytelling, voice acting, and just full characterization as a whole. I personally got introduced to the series through Awakening via osmosis from my brother who had the game. And I had a lot of fun with it. But with that game and also in Fates, I didn't really get invested in the story all that much. Not to really say that Awakening was very bad, but definitely on Fates' end, the characterization in that game, while there are some good examples, overall just really poor. And then comes this game, Fire Emblem Echoes, and trailer dropping back in February of 2017, and I'm hyped for it there. I'm seeing like the official art of the two main characters, and then seeing the material that comes out, I was so excited. A really big fan of the art style, and just to see it be like a remake on this scale was so interesting from a game that really not many fans of the series have really played up to this point, which is a pretty bold move on IS's part. So the game comes out, and I'm just sitting there. I'm playing over through the game, and it's probably the most invested I've been in the series like since I've been involved with it. Just from the first line of dialogue, I was just fully invested into this game. I absolutely love the voice acting in this game. Each character like nails their personality they're trying to convey, and the writing is just top notch as well. They're not ham-fisting their personality traits onto you. It's clear what their personalities are from the get. They're not kind of vague about it, but they just do it in these really smart ways. And that ultimately comes down to the reasons why I love Alm and Celica so much, because they're the focal point of the story. And overall, just it being a very, overall the story being kind of generic in terms of the fantasy genre and all. But even still, I was still captivated over by these characters. And the reason why I include the both of them is just I feel like it would just be kind of sacrilege if I didn't include the both of them, because I both love them for entirely different reasons. Alm, I love him just because just the amount of stuff he has to go through with his family and what he has to do to help accomplish and save the world, and his personality was it's just a good egg. Alm's just such a nice guy, and Celica, who's just a total babe, incredibly nice, and is a really good one, which is over for Alm. So that'll be my piece there. I can't honestly wait to play through the rest of the series there. I can't wait to meet a lot of other interesting characters, and Echoes definitely helped me get this invested in the franchise. So that's it.
Hi, I'm another Texan Zero, and for my favorite FE character submission, I decided to pick the Knight Finn from Genealogy of the Holy War and Thracia 776. Now, the reason why I like Finn so much is that he was the first really great character of Fire Emblem, because he gets to have so much screen time, because you see, this was a time before supports, which were introduced in Binding Blade, so really the only time you could ever know anything about a character was when they had a talk conversation, which wasn't that often, so you would mainly just have these silent drones where you see little bits of personality, but you don't really get to expand on anything other than like Marth and Alm and Celica. So when we first meet Finn in the prologue of Genealogy of the Holy War, he doesn't seem like much. He's a lance user. He in a game with in a few chapters with a lot of axe users, but where he really shines is his personality and the fact that he's also the only character in this from the first generation who's playable in the second. Not the only character to appear, but the only one that's playable. And so he really serves as a good Jagan, sort of. And then he gets even better in Thracia 776 because he starts with a Brave Lance, he has good stats. The only thing is that he's on a horse, which kinda actually sucks in Thracia because of dismounting indoors and only being able to use swords while dismounted. But the thing about Finn is that he is just such a well-written character, because you see how much he really does care for Quan, Ethelyn, and their children. Because he at first leaves them. He leaves with them to go protect Manster, and when they come back, Finn stays to take care of Leif, and then you learn from all sorts of conversations that Leif was in Thracia 776. Leif was one of the very few Thracians who didn't grow up starving, because Finn made sure that Leif and Nana were fed, and he just cares so much, because, like, for example, when you recruit Altena, Leif's sister, Finn breaks down and cries because he was unable to raise her as well, even though he barely had the resources to raise Leif and Nana. And he also has conversations with Quan that really shows how devoted he is, and then also how he's devoted to Lachesis, because they are the canon pairing, and he really does care for Nana. And he cares for Leif as much as he cares for Nana, and he is just such a good character. Either way, that was my submission. Thank you.
My favorite Fire Emblem character is Cordelia from Fire Emblem Awakening. Sorry Lucina, sorry Edelgard, and sorry Raven, but none of you three can compare to my perfect waifu. While the previous three are some of my favorites, Cordelia remains supreme. Why do I love Cordelia? Let's start with game performance. We're going to ignore stats, as second seals and Awakening make growth pretty much pointless. Class-wise, Cordelia can actually have access to every single weapon in the game minus transformation stones, and is the only unit aside from the Avatar to be able to do so. Now for personality/story-wise, while both Lucina and Edelgard are two well-written lords, and Raven has an interesting side story, there's a difference between the best and your favorite. I really like the previous three, but personally, I like Cordelia. Upon introduction, she's seen as professional, but as the chapter ends, you can see her more vulnerable side, showing there's more to her. Cordelia is essentially a prodigy, but doesn't like that. Several of her supports are her trying to get around this, and if not, they're also of how kind she is, and helping out the other shepherds. She's definitely the motherly type character. Also, there's the mini subplot on how she lacks certain assets, namely in the chest area, and I found that actually pretty cute. While she is thirsty for Chrom until you give her an S support, let's be real. Who isn't thirsty for Chrom? Design-wise, the second I saw her, I knew that she would be the waifu. Long red hair, confident position, and that stern but understanding expression. Also, kudos to Julianne Taylor for such a good performance despite being a minor character. But as for why I love her so much, is that she is living proof that being good at everything doesn't mean you'll be satisfied. It's a lesson that many should know, and one that should be applied as well. So there, those are all the reasons I love Cordelia, and why I will continue to do so.
Thank you. I thought nothing could warm my heart again. I shall love you above all others for the rest of my days.
Hello, I'm Bereigner. Thanks for having me in, Fither. I have many beloved characters from the Fire Emblem series, and one of them is Nino, from Fire Emblem 7. Nino is one of my favorite characters in this series. She's a bad unit, and everyone gives her flack for being bad. However, she's written well, and she has a nice character arc. Her story is really sad though. There was a member of the Black Fang called Sonia, whom she raised her as her mother. But little did Nino know that this so-called mother was the one to kill her entire true family. Sonia was intending to use Nino as a scapegoat for Prince Zephyel's death, because she hated her own adoptive daughter. So she sent Jafar with Nino to make sure that he killed her after the mission. While on the mission, Jafar and Nino were eavesdropping on Zephyel while he was praying. Nino felt that he had the same circumstances as her. Nino then told Jafar that she felt that her adoptive mother hates her, and she never even held her hand. So maybe if she did her best this time, she would actually care. But she couldn't kill Zephyel because of sympathy, and subsequently ordered Jafar to kill her instead. Suddenly, to her surprise, Jafar picks her up and rushes for the exit, but they got caught by another Black Fang member, called Ursula, and that starts one of the hardest maps in FE7, Battle Before Dawn. I love her relationship with Jafar. The Nino and Jafar support is one of my favorite support conversations in the series. Those two had to go through so much together, and their backgrounds have brought them closer than ever. And I have to say that their ending is really heart-wrenching. I mean, yeah, they did get to live together and have twin sons, which by the way, make an appearance in FE6 and join Roy's army. But keep in mind that those twins are orphans and they have lived their entire life in an orphanage, because Nino and Jafar couldn't have the chance to raise them after their birth. Jafar has left his family immediately after the birth, because he was afraid that his association with the Black Fang might endanger his family, because apparently, at that point, some group were hunting down Black Fang remnants, which both Jafar and Nino were associated with. So Jafar went missing, and Nino was dreading the fact that she was left alone. So she left her children in search for Jafar, and died on the road because of an unknown reason. In conclusion, I feel Nino deserves more love. Look, I know she's the most popular FA7 character in Japan. What I mean is, she deserves more love outside of Japan. She's nice, she's cute, but most importantly, she's a bad unit.
Lorenz, Hellman Gloucester is a legend. Let's start with his design. Like Lorenz, of course, purple, like his hair's purple, his timeskip armor's purple. The color purple since ancient times has been used as a color of nobility, of royalty. Like the of England were purple. The Romans like gave purple to Jesus to signify he was the king of the Jews. And like, of course, Lorenz, he's a man of purple. He's noble through and through, like in the literal sense of the word, like in his character. Like, of course, in the beginning of the game, like you don't really see that. Like he goes about it the wrong way. He's still a teenager and all, but like after the game goes on, like you can see in his supports, his true character. He wants to like do right by those. He thinks of himself like as the nobles, as the leaders of the masses. It's their job to like support the masses, and like instead, and it's the job of like the commoners to support the nobles, kind of like in a symbiotic reaction. And, like I like that about himself. You know, like the typical like media, you see like nobles, selfish. You know, they want money, but like I really like this depiction of like in Fire Emblem of like a noble that like truly like idealizes the idea of a noble, like really wants to do right by them. Like you can see like his support with like Leone, what's his name, the like kid with the archer, I can't remember his name right now, Raphael, like they're all commoners, but like he doesn't like, he might treat them like a little like they're below him, but like they're like, he wants to like do right by them, like hey, let me hire you, like be my knight, like oh, like you help me out, I help you out too. And like I really like that about him. Like he's a noble, but like not like a selfish noble, like he wants to do right. And of course, but like his view like changed a little like throughout after the time skip, because he sees like Byleth like a commoner, like not of noble blood, but like being able to change the world. He sees like, oh, like maybe like commoners can't truly change the world, and like that's really a good way of seeing about it. I don't know, I really like Lorenz. He's also like a really good Black Knight, like a really good, well, he might not be the best unit, but he's really good like once you train him and all. So yeah, that's about why I like Lorenz. He's like a really great guy. You should play Golden Deer. I don't know why you could play another house instead of Golden Deer.
I'm not the biggest fan of Fire Emblem Fates. A lot of the characters seem to be repeats of characters from Awakening, and in the case of Anna, literally a repeat. Especially on repeat playthroughs, the similarities between the individual versions also started to kick in, and I found myself drifting further and further away from the core cast characters. Additionally, because I started off with the more intensive Fire Emblem Conquest, the comparatively easy Fire Emblem Birthright started to bore me a bit. My characters were too strong for this world. While the core cast was letting me down, and the difficulty was as well, I found myself attached not to a character, but to a mechanic. Both Orochi and Niles have a skill that allows them to capture generic units as well as certain boss units, and I found myself using exclusively those types of characters in order to create some form of challenge in the game. I never felt guilty about grinding in the game because I also was never reloading upon death, because they are ultimately generics and they are ultimately replaceable. I found myself attached to a generic soldier unit named Hubert. Despite his villager level class and the fact that he was just a generic, he ended up pulling a lot more weight than I expected throughout the game, and I felt actually a bit torn up when he ended up dying during the final chapter. When a character doesn't have a defined story attached to them, you end up writing your own story based off of how they perform. You see this a lot with Nuzlocke runs in Pokemon, and being able to transfer that same feeling of turning a blank slate into an absolute legend in Fire Emblem was a nice experience. I also want to give a shout out to the Bond babies that you can make through the My Castle feature. Well, I didn't use any during the capture-only playthrough. I did wind up using a few Corn self-cessed children during my playthrough of the Revelations route of the game. Ultimately, it made me realize that Fire Emblem really is about making it your experience. How your characters level up, what characters you use, will tell more of an interesting story than usually what the actual game tells. And I want to thank Niles, Orochi, and the generics I made along the way for that lesson on Fire Emblem Fates.
So I actually only heard about this from the post on YouTube that Fither posted, which was like an hour ago from when I started writing the script. I thought about how to go about it, since picking a favorite Fire Emblem character is actually kind of hard since there's so many of them. So many of them have affected me. So instead, I think I'll just pick a character that I liked a lot, that stood out to me. He's not necessarily my favorite, even in the game he's in, but after starting his support, something about him just drew me to him. Sylvain from Three Houses is an amazing character. When I first saw him, I was thinking, oh look, it's Sane as a redhead. Maybe that take isn't exactly wrong, but that would sell him short. While his most apparent trait is clearly his scandalous nature, it's definitely his lack of self-worth that is his most core character trait. Every boon that Sylvain has had throughout his life has never been accredited to him. It's always accredited to his family line, or his crest. So because of this, he ends up losing worth as a person, because he knows nobody will ever see him as anything else but those. And so he ends up failing to see his self-worth, seeing it only as his family or his crest. He despises it. So he wears this mask that he doesn't care, and that he just flirts with women because it's what he does. It's what people expect. Because he knows, or at least feels, his freedom has limits. Honestly, that one day, with a good enough offer, it'll go away. He plays games to have a good time, and these games happen to be women. But he knows how empty it is, and how empty he is. But he's done it for so long, it's hard for him to change his mindset. And his outlook on life is so bleak. And that's why I like Sylvain. That's why he stands out to me. As a character, he's kind of interesting, because he's a new take on something we've already gotten in this series. It's also something, or at least a point in this character I'd like to point out that I feel like a lot of people overlook, is that, at least specifically in his support with Ash, he calls out the shallow ideals of knighthood that many people have, and he just tells people that being themselves is enough, even though for him it's not even enough.
I adore Fire Emblem Three Houses so much. Every character There's something for me to like about them, and a lot of them have shot up into my favorites in this series. But no character stole my heart quite like Mercedes did, as she is now my favorite character in the franchise. And although she is amazing, her family life really wasn't. At an early age, she was adopted out of her home and raised solely for her crest, and nothing more. It's likely that her father really didn't care about her other than marrying her off for her crest to marry into nobility. And then somewhere along the line, she was sent to school. Sent off to school in Furiad, and then the Officers' Academy. It's likely there she learned that she could live not for her family, but for her friends and herself. She can support her friends when they need it, and she can lean on them. She acts as a wonderful therapist, supporting them all through their own struggles, and using her empathetic nature to nurture the hearts of everyone around her. Although, when it comes to talking about her own problems with life, she doesn't seek a solution. She already knows what she wants to do. Instead of mending the bond, she would rather run away. Even still, she chooses to be there solely for her friends and no one else. Being there for her friends is enough reason to keep going. And as such, she's had an optimistic outlook on life. As long as she's with her friends, she knows that she will always be happy. Mercedes' struggles are some that I can relate to. Sure, I'm not getting married off, but my own life at home really is not the happiest. I'm not being groomed for a particular trait I was born with, rather I was abused by one of my parents. But rather than sit around and think that I'm helpless and that I can't do anything, I found a community to be a part of. And the more I involved myself in that community, the more I realized that I wasn't the only one struggling to get by. There were a lot of people around me, suffering silently. But as soon as they opened up a little bit to me, I realized that maybe I could help them. Maybe I could be the help that they needed. I might not give them the solution, but I can be at least a pillar for them to lean on, and maybe even spring themselves off the ground and help them begin to see a way forward. I'm so happy that a character like Mercedes exists, because there are very few characters that I feel I can relate to. And looking at Mercedes is a bit like a reflection. My family life might not be ideal. It might not even be good at all. But at least I can continue for both myself and my friends. And that community of people that I met to help me realize that this was the kind of person I was, I met through this channel. So really, I've got to thank you, Fither. So, thank you. And thank you, Fire Emblem, for giving me a character like Mercedes. P.S. Mercedes is both elegant and adorable, which I just love so much. She's perfect. So thank you, and goodbye.
Picking a favorite Fire Emblem character is a tough decision, since all games have very memorable and great characters in them. It's one of FE's defining traits, even if the quality of the games can vary between entries. I love many of the series' companions, but as much as I try, the first character that always takes precedence for me is Lady Lindis. As most people in the West, I got introduced to Fire Emblem through Smash Bros., and I became interested in the franchise immediately. And while I sadly never owned a copy of it, a friend lent me his copy of Blazing Blade, and I immediately fell in love with Lyn of the Seiken Lorca tribe. While ignorant of her nobility through her maternal grandfather, I loved watching her develop into the beautiful and deadly Lady Lindis. Yeah, the first thing that attracted me to her was her design. However, her kind yet determined nature won me over immediately, and she became a fixed member in my party through the entire game. I was surprised to learn her story was just an introductory prologue made for us dumb Western fans, and annoyed that she didn't have too much personal involvement in the overall true plot of the game. Regardless, that didn't affect the way that I feel about her. For anybody that knows and cares for actual stats, it's a well-known fact that she's probably the worst Lord character in the entire franchise, and fans tend to blindly defend her and overrate her, despite, stat-wise, being one of the weakest Lord characters. Her strength and defense aren't anything special, and sadly her health leaves a lot to be desired. However, with good growth stats, her high evasion and critical rates can make her a lethal unit. She's basically a Myrmidon Lord, and as such can annihilate her enemies with deadly yet graceful speed. While almost objectively a bad unit by most standards, I don't particularly care for that since her character is what makes me love her so. A kind and brave woman that feels the weight of her newfound responsibilities as a lord. A character that feels the pain of those she lost, yet doesn't let it bring her down. Her kindness and willingness to give people a chance. Her ability to support both Eliwood and Hector in their quest, as well as having flaws such as her reluctance to assist against pirates due to her past with them, as well as her marvelous supports that make her a credible character. Not to mention her humorous bickering with Hector, which never failed to amuse me. She's not perfect, far from anything, but that's exactly what I love about her. She's one of the most well-written characters in the franchise in my personal opinion, and it's her characterization that I adore to this day, and I am very glad that she was the first character that I ever met in all Fire Emblem.
Hector is probably one of my favorite lords from Fire Emblem. Before I played Blazing Blade, I always thought he was just a badass with an axe, but I never realized how much I would grow to love this character and how much I can relate to him. Hector really wants people to look at him as a pillar to lean on. This makes him hide his emotions and problems to other people. For example, Hector stays strong after he realizes his brother had died, just so he doesn't make Eliwood worry. Hector also has trouble displaying his emotions. One of my favorite conversations from Blazing Blade is in chapter 18, when Hector and Lyn talk about their dead parents. Hector talks about when his parents died from illness, he couldn't cry, even when he was alone. This really shows how much Hector has convinced himself that he needs to be emotionally strong for other people, that he can't show his true emotions even to himself. I really love his development and how he realizes that he doesn't have to hide his feelings or his emotions from his friends, because they're gonna still look at him as a strong person no matter what. I honestly relate to this side of Hector, as I find it really hard to open myself up to any personal problems that I have to any of my family members or friends, because I always have this thing like in the back of my head always telling me that it's not their problem. I don't want to burden them, and I just don't like asking for help. There are a lot of other reasons why I love Hector, like his relationships with Eliwood and Lyn, but it was more his emotional development and maturity is what really makes him one of my favorite Fire Emblem characters.
My favorite Fire Emblem character is definitely the one and only Mia from Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. I love Mia so much. I loved her from the moment I saw her. I knew she was going to be my waifu in this series, and that's what she is. She's my waifu and favorite character. She's exceptionally beautiful, very upbeat, confident, always smiling, always improving her skills as a swordswoman. She tries to spar with Ike a lot. She also tries to spar with Riss, even though he's physically weak, because of something a fortune teller told her, and to try and find her rival clad in white. And so Riss wears white, and she's like, oh yeah, you must be our rival. But it's a very funny interaction between the two. And she also helped me through a very rough time in my life. She had a really big influence on me as a person. She really taught me that, just be confident in yourself, always smile, never dwell on things too much. I learned all those lessons from Mia. And yeah, and also she uses a sword, and I love swords. Out of the three weapons, lances, axes, and swords are by far my favorite. She's also an absolute monster in Radiant Dawn if you get her to True Blade, and even before that, she's still just a really solid unit. And yeah, in my opinion, Mia is the best girl in the series, hands down. I could go on for days talking about her, but no, I'm gonna keep it short. So yeah, Mia, best girl in the series, hands down.
Fire Emblem November is here, and with it comes another collaboration for this channel. On this occasion, we were asked to talk about our favorite characters in the series. From the very beginning, this brings us a problem, since I love almost all of these characters, like if they were my children. It hurts to tell them that I love one of them more than the others. Doing this, I was able to pin it down to 3 characters: Mia from Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, Catherine and Shamir from Three Houses. However, when I was just about to send this video to you, I received an unexpected package from GeneralVan, who had somehow tracked my address. Inside it, there was a veiled threat that if I ended up stealing his thunder by picking any of these characters, specifically Mia, I would have to endure playing the following game contained in the package. When I checked, I found out to my horror that it was a Super Famicom with a hacked English-translated cartridge of Fire Emblem Thrashed 776. Not wanting to incur on the general's wrath and fearful of playing this game under the rule of our supreme gacha idol overlord, I went back to the drawing board and came up with a new factor. Love at first sight does count. And with this I ended with 2 finalists, both from Fire Emblem Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. First is Neffiny and then is Jill. I have a very hard time breaking this tie, but in the end Neffiny came just a little bit on top on Jill. They both are very attractive, they both are really cool, they both have good potential and they have waifu material. Jill is overall a better unit, and more important to my tastes at least, she has red hair. But in the end, the character that was my MVP in my runs of those games were Neffiny by far. I like Neffiny. She's a country girl. She's very nice. She at the start is very shy, and that can be a little annoying, but starts to get out of her shell. And more importantly, she ends up being in the sequel in Radiant Dawn. She ends up being a somewhat very important character during the second part. She has the potential to being one of the best units in that game specifically. And she also has a very big love for her country. She's very nice. She as a person that survived being the cannon fodder, being a soldier class, and has always put everything at risk just to save her friends and her country. So I really like that of her. I also think that she's very attractive. She has a very good design. She has a very unique hair, and I like her armor. It's somewhat attractive, and it also actually functional. So 2 points for that. I mean, when one of your favorite characters ends up double critting the penultimate boss of the game after avoiding a double attack from him, and one of those attacks being actually a crit, you end up not only satisfied that all those hours of training didn't went to the garbage or the drain or whatever, but also you end up in love at first sight because she saved your whole run. And that's why Neffiny is my favorite character of Fire Emblem. I also like Jill. She is in second place, more specifically.
An important note. I have only played Awakening yet and didn't really bother to grind all the support conversations or even read them on the internet, so it is entirely possible that there is some character in this series, or maybe in that very game, that I will like more than the one I'm about to talk about. And so my favorite character has to be Anna. I'm not just talking about that one person who was the part of Chrome's and Roman's army. What a shame she only had 2 supports, but about Anna as a general entity. I did bother to read some additional info on the subject, and I can say all that history about family of merchants who give their daughters the same name, who all look the same and behave the same, is actually pretty cool, especially that part about the log that contains the history of the deeds of all the Annas. Now on to personality. She's smart, cunning, possesses some serious guile, and these are the qualities I can totally respect. Her caricature obsession with money is quite funny and entertaining, like for example when she says upon leveling up something along the lines of "I wish my profits would grow as fast." But there is more to that trait than just being entertaining. There is actual truth in her words. Like when in support with Robin, when she says, "Yeah, sure, there are things you cannot buy with money, but having the sufficient amount of money can help you soothe the pain of not having the things you cannot buy." She wholly understands the importance of financial well-being, and maybe, as it often happens with characters we like, I'm seeing some traits of personality I possess myself. And I cannot blame anyone for the desire to turn profit. I can blame for methods though. There are things you cannot buy with money, but having it doesn't really hurt. And Anna understands it, putting her admirable wits to work in order to turn as much profit as she can, without delving into anything illegal or scamming. Well, for the most part, as far as I'm concerned. And that is why I like that character.
Hoo boy, there are so many characters I love, but I gotta rep my underrated husband, Hubert von Vestra. Okay, yes, he's absolutely an edgy, dramatic vampire goth, but like, he's also weirdly layered and tragic, and I have no choice but to love him. Ever since he was a child, Hubert has been told that he exists to serve Edelgard, and he's definitely internalized that to some degree, but at the same time, he is in absolute awe of her and would gladly devote himself to her even if he didn't bear the blood obligation of the Vestra household. And like, I have more to say, but isn't that the most attractive trait a man can have? Total subservience, an overwhelming desire to help you achieve your goals, and viewing you like a goddess? Need me a freak like that. Anyway, Hubert's service is simultaneously extremely noble and uncontrollably shady. He has no ulterior motive, he just wants Edelgard to succeed, and that means he's willing to do absolutely anything, up to and including killing his own father in the name of her progress. But at the same time, he makes decisions that he thinks are best, and he keeps secrets from Edelgard. Hubert, in the name of acting as the perfect right hand, denies himself personhood. Hubert von Vestra exists for someone else, and he will mold himself in any way to serve that goal. He looks and acts like a villain because that's who he feels he has to be. He's had to deal in shady business his whole life, so then that's who he is, right? What we get at first is this facade, a boy who refuses to be a person. But then after the time skip, we see more of the real Hubert peeking through. The dramatic flair is fun for him, he waxes poetic, and he's surprisingly empathetic, picking up on how his allies feel with ease and acting to aid or comfort them because he feels he can trust these people now. His character progression is super interesting, and honestly he ends up being so much softer than you initially think. I just think he's neat, and I hope he allows himself to be a more full and realized person post-game. Also, Timeskip Hubert is an absolute goth hunk, and you cannot convince me otherwise.
If I could, I would have picked all of Golden Deer, but I can't do that, so it's got to be Hilda. Because when it comes to the three houses leaders, best friend type characters, who Dedue, Hubert, Hilda, she to me stands out the most. She's just, her design alone stands out from, you know, buff guy and creepy guy with bright girl, but also just her personality of not wanting to do anything and being lazy, but then going through her social link, social link, and getting her more confident, going into battle more. I love it. Also, she's best girl along with Dorothea, but don't at me at that. Fuck yeah. Bye.
Claude von Regan from Three Houses has gotta be my favorite Fire Emblem character. I think this is probably because he's a great combination of a lot of different character traits that I really enjoy. He's a prankster, sure, and he did try and poison the other two houses right before the mock battle, but he isn't gonna crack jokes at a funeral. Like, if Lorenz were gonna die, he wouldn't be like, man, he looks like a square even when he's dead. He also isn't a very honorable here. He's like, fuck honor before reason, let's go poison their food. And it's a nice change when there's too many Fire Emblem characters who act like that. I also enjoy that it's not because he just wants the battle to be easier he does that, but because he'd rather see living allies having done some dirty things instead of dead allies from taking a moral high road. And also, unlike the other lords in Three Houses and some lords in other games, he just acts like a normal dude. He's like, oh yeah, I'm just so happened to be this guy who is next in line to rule 2 other countries. And that makes him really approachable. The last thing I like Claude, because he isn't like Edelgard being like, let's conquer Fodlan because crests are evil for some reason, or he's not going full Dimitri. I'll rip that girl's arm off and cave her skull in with it. He just really wants Fodlan to be united peacefully after having seen that people from Elmira hate Fodlanders and Fodlanders hate Elmirans, and wants everything to just come together. And he doesn't need a personal reason to fight Edelgard like Dimitri does. He just does it because he disagrees with her, and that's great. I also enjoy that he doesn't have any mental trauma like the other 2 lords and doesn't need it to be a good guy. And really him not having any mental trauma shows that mental trauma is not a good character trait, which was shown in the same game with Edelgard and Dimitri. All in all, Claude's just a fun character, and even though I've only played Fates and Three Houses, I think he'd still be my favorite character if I played every other Fire Emblem game in the series.
Ever since I bought Fire Emblem Awakening in 2013, it's made a permanent home in my Nintendo 3DS. The main reason being some of the characters, with the main one being Severin. Yeah, make all your tsundere jokes all day long. I defend that because that's part of her charm. I really wasn't expecting much on my first playthrough with Awakening. I only did her supports with Cordelia and Stahl, who was her father in that playthrough, a few of the children, and that's about it. Once I got to the last chapter, I decided to have my Robin have A supports with everyone to give me an unfair advantage. I was playing on casual and normal, like a newbie. But when I got to Sebra, she actually had really interesting and almost funny support. She was constantly trying to one-up Robin and his scenarios for a particular battle, and she would get really defensive when he would dismiss it or make a counter argument. It piqued my interest, and so I went back to her other sports and got to understand more of her character. And her inferiority complex and self-esteem issues were kind of relatable to me. I was in middle school at the time, the best middle school in my area, so I kind of had doubts about myself being in that school, if I was good enough for it. People wear masks to protect themselves, and Severus is no different. Her sharp tongue and brashness is a mask to hide her caring and benevolent side. When she says, "I hate you," it is usually the opposite, like most Subaru's. But you know what? I'm glad that character returned to Fire Emblem Fates. You know, it's great to see her be more mature, but still have some aspects of her awakening personality.
Alright, so my favorite character is Minerva from Shadow Dragon because of two main reasons. The first reason is I like her design. It's one of my favorites probably out of the entire series, mainly because red is my favorite color and she's pretty much coated in red from head to toe. So it looks really good to me, and she has the sort of green composition color, which contrasts really, really well, makes the red pop out. She has like the gold, which just gives that like nice accent color, which gives off that like royal feel. I'm also kind of an armor file, so I'm really into like armor, especially fantasy armor. I think it just looks really, really cool. I actually prefer it a lot over like bikini armor or whatever, where it's like they're half naked and shit. I'm a full armor kind of guy. And the second reason is kind of the character depth she has, because it's like I feel that she like has more depth than most characters in like of any of the Fire Emblem series, especially for like the first couple games, which had way more simpler characters. Because you know, the more I look into her, the more I read about her, I notice more things, like how like Minerva is kind of sort of a mix of her two siblings, which is kind of ironic because she's like the middle child. So she has like Michaelis's like warrior skills and his like outward cold attitude, while like more on like her like I guess the inside, she's kind of more like her younger sister, which is like this kind of sweeter side, kind of a little more innocent, which I think is kind of like an interesting dynamic that I've never seen before, and I think it's just really cute, I guess. I don't know, but yeah, I guess that's like those are the main reasons I like her.
Motherfucking Donnell. So forget everything you know about Awakening. Blue-haired lords, albino dragonkins. Fucking please. Donnell is the true protagonist of this story. Donnell is supposed to be a Magikarp character, a character who initially starts off incredibly useless but through proper training becomes the ace of your roster. And Gyarados is like one of the best Pokemon ever, so I'm already hooked. Donnell has a skill called Aptitude. It's a skill that boosts your growth rate by 20%. So once you get him to 20 and you change his rank from villager to mercenary or fighter, congratulations, you've won the game. I'm not kidding at all. He can single-handedly wipe out entire maps by himself late game. Oh, you have a silver axe? That shit's plastic to Skywalker over here. Oh, your killer blade does critical damage? 0 times 2, even with a crit, is still 0, dumbass. Oh, you're gonna try magic? Buddy, the only thing Donnell needs to read is your obituary in the fucking papers. Not only is this chat an unstoppable killing machine, this dude will breed champions. The seed of the gods, I say. And to think these pussy-footed royals with their fancy dragon swords can't even put down one measly god without a double KO. Godslayer Donnell over here could do it with 2 arms tied behind his fucking back. Not to mention, all of his supports are just fantastic. This dude is just so genuine. His goal in life is that he loves his mom and his village, and he wants to come back a hero so he can protect them, and then make whoever he marries a happy woman. That shit is like by-the-books, god-tier stuff. His supports with Kellum and Stahl are just so simplistic of how good friends they are, which just being friends with Kellum and Stahl makes you an amazing person by yourself, because you've already picked out some of the best people in the whole group. He teaches Robin's bland ass about traps and strategy, because that fucker can't do anything without Chrom helping him. And this motherfucker will dabble in dark arts with Tharja without a second thought. He will get whatever she needs that she can cure fucking cancer. Donnell is the greatest character in Awakening hands down. He might be a country bumpkin, but he's a country bumpkin with a body of iron and a heart of gold.
So if I have to go for a favorite in Fire Emblem, I'd say Ike from Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. So as many, I've come to know him through Smash, and I thought he looked cool even if it was a bit slow to play. Later on when we got like the buff version and I heard about the games, I decided to play his game and found out it costs as much as new console, so I just watched a playthrough. What I immediately loved about him is how he's like complex and straightforward at the same time, having him like acknowledging it, how naive and himbo he is. Like even saying sorry and admitting that he's wrong to people many times, while also not letting stuff fly even if the context is not the best ever. Like the time where he starts an argument with a Beninese empress who is hosting them, and even later on when, after long-winded speeches about how they should abandon people in a difficult strategic position, he just answers with no. And like, yeah, many other moments. Also on smaller things, I like how the game's writing can tactfully imply that he's also attracted to men, and I also love when he does the spinny thingy thing, you know. So yeah, thanks for having me. See ya.
Hi, I want to say my favorite Fire Emblem character is Severa from Fire Emblem Awakening. I like her snark, I like her attitude, I like how she gets to the point of the matter, and I also appreciate that she has a sensitive side, and how she grows out of her inferiority complex slowly during the game, and it especially shows during Fire Emblem Fates when she grows more competitive with her companions like Hinata, Baruka, and how she grows as a person as proven by her supposed daughter Kaldori if you marry her to Sabaki. I also like the references that comes out when you support her in a way with the Heartsprings DLC, and her stats aren't that bad either. She's one of the best units in the game in Awakening, and she's very mostly tanking in Fates. I just wish that Fates has done more with her, and yeah, that's all I got to say. She's my favorite girl.
You can't stop me!
My name is Dusk, and my favorite Fire Emblem character is Dorothea Arnold from Fire Emblem Three Houses. First off, she has such a really beautiful design.
Yada yada.
Her backstory was really sad, but I'm glad she grew and was able to become a student at Garrick Mach. I love the way she acts with the rest of her class, like when she makes up nicknames for everyone she knows. For example, Hubie, 80, Verdi. I really relate to that, as I'm always making up nicknames for my own friends. Her singing is truly amazing, like in her support with Edelgard. Not to mention her English voice actress, Allegra Clark, really brings Dorothea to life, and I really enjoy seeing what she's gonna do or say next in her supports. Lastly, I love performing arts, voice acting, even writing songs from time to time. So to see a character already accomplished and be a part of my dream career is something I really admire about her. I adore Dorothea, and she's the greatest waifu. Get it? Dorothea? I'ma head out.
Hi, my name is Jude, and today I'm going to talk about Lucina, one of my favorite Fire Emblem characters, and perhaps one of my favorite characters like in every video game, maybe? I don't know. So Lucina, I really like Lucina because she's really strong. She's really determined of what she wants to do. Like she wants to save the future, to change and save the future, because she literally lives in hell of an earth, and she wants to go back to the past and change everything because she doesn't want to anybody to suffer once again of the things Girima made and everything. So I really like her design. The first time I saw her, it was I think in a trailer from Smash, or maybe before of that. So yeah, I really like her design, the mask, the colors of her clothes, the cape. I really like characters with capes. So I saw her and I thought I was like, oh wow, she looks so cool. I actually thought she was a boy. So well, like, oh, he's so handsome, but also, oh wow, she's a girl. That's even better. So yeah, when I played the game, my friend told me, oh, you should play Awakening because it's a game about waifus and anime shit and stuff, but also has a really cool story. So I went and bought it, and started playing, and I really like the story. I really like the characters, but of course my favorite from all of them is Lucina. So yeah, I really like Lucina a lot. I admire her strong will, her strong determination. She's also kind of silly and dumb, and in one of her supports with her sibling, in Cynthia in my case, she's helping Cynthia in killing a bug, but she also she can't kill the bug because she was also afraid of the bug. So they ended up asking Chrome, their dad, to kill the bug. So yeah, also with the support with Robin, with female Robin, when she's not her mother. I like her design, I like her everything, I like her support, I like her story. It's really sad also. She's willing to take everything she got to restore the peace of the future and don't let Grima repeat all the catastrophe once again. Like she's, I think, 177 tall, and that's really good.
He is Ferdinand von Aegir. I'm sure that a lot of people are already picking Three Houses characters because that's the new hotness, and I'm sure that Ferdinand is already a very popular choice. To be honest, there are so many Three Houses characters that I like, and there are so many characters I like in the other games, but flavor of the month right now is Ferdinand. I just think he's a cool guy. You kind of think he's this conceited diva type at first, who's like, oh, I'm so noble, I'm important, but it turns out he's actually really altruistic about it. He sincerely believes his rhetoric that the noble people should stand up for what the good of the country is and things like that, look out for the common people. In some ways, he's kind of like Papyrus from Undertale. Now to just imagine Ferdinand making spaghetti. But anyway, Ferdinand, he is the noblest of nobles. Another thing I like about him is his rivalry with Edelgard, where he doesn't strictly want to be better than her. He also just wants to push her. In his own way, he kind of plays devil's advocate to Edelgard, even though she's sitting all alone with Hubert at the cool kids table. Ferdinand likes to think that he's close to Edelgard's level at least, and in some of her later supports with Ferdinand, she concedes that he does play a helpful role in her life, so it all does amount to something. These are traits that I kind of like to carry around with me sometimes, making sure people stay honest, people keep trying to be the best versions of themselves. He's a very admirable type of person. Incidentally, Lorenz has a lot of these good qualities too in some of their supports. He just goes about it in a lot more of a foppish and funny way, but Ferdinand wins out in the end though, because he is Ferdinand von Aegir.
Hello, I'm HippieGate47, and I'm going to be talking about my favorite Fire Emblem character from Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War and Thracia 776, and that's Finn. Finn's honestly one of the more interesting units in the franchise in the sense of, when you look at him, you would just see him as just, oh, he's loyal knight. We've had that in many Fire Emblem games before and many since. But his loyalty is something that, until, honestly, Dedue, and even then, Dedue barely can compete, I feel, with Finn's loyalty in terms of just how loyal he is to Leaf, who also appeared in Fire Emblem 4 and Thracia 776. Finn's a really great character in the sense of, he struggles so much and goes through so much for Leaf, but it's shown that throughout his loyalty, that it doesn't matter to him, as you learn that in moments when him and Leaf are fleeing, he gave up meals for days, weeks, and months on end just so Leaf could eat. And all of this so Leaf could be this best leader he can be and wouldn't have to suffer. There are things about how Finn will even take in those who aren't even his family and would treat them like his own kids, and basically fought constantly without rest for over 3 years. And I think it's honestly just a loyalty that is unparalleled in Fire Emblem that's just so interesting. And in other personal stuff, Finn was just a unit that when I played in FE4, I just had so many fun things where there's the Paragon ring, which lets you get more experience. And when I had Finn get that on accident, all of a sudden he went from this weak unit, this sort of weak unit of mine who was okay but didn't do much, to all of a sudden promoted my best unit, killing everything. And in Fire Emblem 4, he got to continue through with that and, protect some of the characters and give me some really clutch moments. And then in playing Fire Emblem 5, just having him as this, again, just this monster with his Brave Lance that was able to kill so many things, and it's just so cool to see, and he's such a great unit in all of his games that it also just speaks to me personally, that gets to me personally compared to others, and it's something that I feel like Fire Emblem can never truly recreate, although it's been done well since, like you do, but to me there's nothing that could beat the Finn. Thank you for listening, and have a good day.
So, this is awesome, because now I have an excuse to spitball about Gray from Shadows of Valencia for a few minutes. Now, aside from having some of the funniest dialogue in the game, Gray is awesome, because he's just this big gorilla trapped in a man's body. He's just so blunt and straightforward. Like, in his support with Claire, he kind of tries to flirt with her by coming up with this really lame metaphor about flowers, and Claire just tells him to knock it off using all that refined, noble vocabulary. So, in their B support, Gray just comes out trying to be more straightforward, and he just says, "Look, I'm really into you." And Claire probably could have said anything at this point, and he'd have probably backed off, but she says, "No, you're not into me. This is just a joke to you. You're just trying to have fun." But Gray is so basic and straightforward and gorilla-brained that it catches him completely off guard. If there's one thing he's completely sure of, it's just that he likes this girl. So A-Rank just ends up as Claire, just coming to the realization that Gray really is in love with her, like, completely and genuinely. And this sort of straight-to-the-point, again, gorilla brain approach to romantic development is something that, first and foremost, I find to be absolutely adorable, but also something kind of unique. I wish that Persona, or hell, I'd even like it if some visual novels would take a page from the Gray playbook and just go with the Unga Bunga, I'm really into you storyline.
My favorite Fire Emblem character is Claude Von Regan from Fire Emblem Three Houses. Well, first off, Joe Zege's voice acting on him is great. My ancestors were cursed, therefore I'm cursed. But in terms of the three lords, even though he's the least interesting of the three, which isn't saying all that much since Edelgard and Dimitri are super interesting as characters, he's the most unique lord that we've had in the series. There hasn't really been a trickster lord in terms of personality. And yeah, he's just, the whole schemer thing, it really made him stand out of the three, because one was very obviously the more traditional Marth type lord, and the other was kind of more the Hector type lord, I guess is the best way to put it. But Claude's just in this weird space of not fitting in, which actually fits his whole motif as a character. But alongside that, in terms of gameplay, he's the first bow lord, a lord that specializes in bows. We haven't really had that. The closest we had was Takumi in Fate, and he's not exactly a lord. He's just he's just an important character. But he's the first bow lord, and also the first flyer lord. There hasn't really been a flying lord in any game. It was almost always armored or on a horse. Never on a wyvern or a pegasus or anything. And yeah, the combination of archer on a flyer, not exactly the most common thing, because the only times we've seen those are in Heroes and in Fates as the Kinshi Knight. Yeah, there really isn't much I can say about Claude other than he's just funny, great character, really unique. He's Like, objectively speaking, I know he's not the most interesting of characters because we have people like Lysithea, we have Hilda, Marianne, Dimitri, Edelgard, I guess Setith can count there too. Yeah, has some really steep competition, but he's funny so he gets by, and like, if a character makes me happy, then that's about all I can ask for.
Hello, I'm Noodle, and my favorite Fire Emblem character is Ash from Three Houses. I think the first time I saw Ash was like from a screenshot of the game that I didn't really pay much mind to. The first time I played through the game, I chose Golden Deer. And I remember going to the greenhouse and seeing Ash there, so I'm like, hey, guess I'll talk to him. And then he started talking about like how he learned a lot about plants from Lonato and how much he liked them. And then I told myself, yeah, I like plants too. I don't know why that interaction has stuck with me. Later on, I'm talking to some friends about whether or not I should recruit some students from the other houses. One of them, who was playing Blue Lions at the time, suggested that I would recruit Ash. I'm like, okay, sure. So I try my hardest to recruit him. I spend a lot of time with him and I gave him a bunch of gifts to build up his support level. And reading his supports, I found out that he's like a super sweet kid who had to steal to survive at some point. I felt bad for him. I finally recruited him. I was like, heck yeah, now what? And at the time I already had recruited Sylvain, so I had to bench somebody, so I chose Leone. Sorry, Leone. Whenever the time skip happened, I looked at my roster and I saw that Ash wasn't there. I started freaking out because I thought all my efforts were have gone to waste. And once I got to the Ayla map and I saw him there, I was really happy to see him, but also I was terrified because he was an enemy unit. And I was like, okay, you know what? What if I just go talk to him, Maybe he can join my side then, because that's how it usually happens. So I go up to him and I don't see the talk option, so I start freaking out more. Oh gosh, do I have to battle him? And then in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, so if I do battle him and this permanently kills him, I can just turn back time and avoid him. I battle him and then it tells me that I can spare him, and I ended up getting so relieved. I'm like, oh my god, I can have him back. Yes, I'm so happy. I honestly think I started crying because I was just that happy. Whenever I got to the end of the Golden Deer route, I felt bad for not choosing Ash to S support, because when I first played through whenever I first started, I had the initial goal to marry Claude, because Claude's pretty good. And I don't know, I just gotten so attached to him. I spent so much time with him to get him to join my house and going through his supports. I don't know, I just felt really bad. But in the end, he ended up getting a paired ending with Marianne, which was very sweet. I liked Ash so much that I recruited him immediately when I started playing through Black Eagles, when I chose that house. And then I first went through Crimson Flower, and then Silver Snow, and then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna finally marry Ash in Blue Lions. So I go through Blue Lions, and I ended up marrying him. I was so happy. His S support is just the sweetest thing. It's so cute. Makes me so happy. I was like, wow, I did it. I've gone through this entire game and I finally married Ash. Heck yeah. One thing I remember about Ash's A support was that whenever he said that he cared about me, my face started feeling really warm, and I blushed really hard at that one remark. I was like, oh dang, I think I love him. But yeah, overall, Ash is just a super sweet character who deserves the world.
So, I am a Fire Emblem baddie. Three Houses was my first game. I only got into it because I had a friend that was super hyped around when the first character designs were revealed. I knew a little bit about Fire Emblem, the support system and so, and of course that it was this turn-based combat system, kind of like XCOM. So I decided, why not, I'll try it out. And I looked at the supports for male Byleth with other males because I'm a big homo, of course. And I was super disappointed because it was just two old men and this weird lanky twink named Lyn. When I first looked into him, I saw that he was just what he looked to be, a weird, stuck-up, lazy loser that I wouldn't enjoy at all. Now, when I actually got the game and played the Black Eagles route, I was super excited to find out that this was actually Lorenz, and that Linhardt was great. He is so sarcastic and low energy, yet manic about things he cares about, like crests and his research, but only research that interests him. He's not Hanuman. And that kind of resonates with me, with my own weird flowing passion for things and my hatred of subjects that I don't think apply to me. So that really vibed with me. And also, he's not just a research-hungry, like, loner. Even though he prefers to be silent or kind of reserved, he still values his friends. Like, in his support with Bernie, he's super sweet and he just enjoys spending time with her, even in silence. And he really likes her talent and supports her. And also, he calls her cute, and that is a very cute scene. Fight me. But his best support is with Lysithea, because you really see his love for crests juxtaposed with his value of his friends. He loves that she has 2 crests and really wants to study that, but he understands that it will kill her, and he likes her more than his research. So he's willing to, as seen in their paired ending, get rid of her 2nd crest and forego all that research just to save her life. And that is super sweet and not really something I expected when I first saw the character and what he was like on the outside. So overall, he surprised me a lot, and his design actually grew on me, especially his time skip. He's very a proper Victorian gentleman, and that is all. He is my son / husbando thing, and I will fight anyone who says otherwise.
Oh boy, time for my thing. But yeah, my favorite Fire Emblem character has to be Soren. And it really is kind of the totality of his character. It's his history, it's his mindset, it's his approach to doing things. And more than any other, he's the Fire Emblem character that, like, when Soren was on screen, I was happy. He is the character that I always wanted to see more of. He's like a really bitter asshole, and Soren really seems like the kind of character you either love or hate, just depending on how much you can vibe with his personality and stubbornness and stuff. But I'm all for it. I usually vibe with those kinds of characters that are very like, the result is the only thing that matters, everything else is superfluous, and over-reliance on like emotions and doing what's right is not productive. Like, Soren is all about productivity, the success of the Grail mercenaries, and victory. And another thing I really like about Soren is the fact that to really learn the truth about him, you gotta do some work. Soren's true identity and the reason why he acts the way he was isn't ever really plainly laid out to you. You need to do his support with Ike to learn the truth about the fact that the reason why he's such a racist, unhappy person is because he's a half-breed who was shunned by society when he was a fucking baby, and he couldn't speak and he was gonna die, until Ike showed up and essentially saved his life. And that's why Ike is really the only person he gives a particular shit about, and the rest of the world can kinda just burn. And you know, underneath that really, really hard, racist shell, there's somebody who's actually very vulnerable, very caught up in the past, and probably would like to learn how to trust and love other people, but he just kinda can't. And yeah, I just think he has one of the most compelling stories in Fire Emblem. Kind of ironic that my favorite character didn't get a dedicated video this month, but one day, definitely. But yeah, that has been the Fire Emblem Community Collab. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you so much to everybody who made a submission. It really turned out great. I love making these videos, even if they are a lot of work and coordination, but it turned out great in the end, so thank you everybody. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed Fire Emblem November. And I'll see you guys next time.